I don't really know how to start this video. This video is the kind of video that could end someone's YouTube career, and I feel like it's probably the kind of video that means I'm gonna lose a bunch of subscribers and get a bunch of downvotes and all that stuff. And that sucks. I don't really want that to happen. That's not my goal here. But I think I just kind of have to be honest as somebody who is playing the Final Fantasy VII Remake, a huge game, one of the biggest and most anticipated releases of this entire generation, a legendary game, a game that has such a strong following and a huge fan base, not only because the franchise it's within has a huge fan base, but this game specifically has long been considered, to many people, obviously not everybody, but to many people, to be the seminal game within the franchise. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when this game came out, and it was the coolest, most amazing looking thing I'd ever seen. I never really owned a PlayStation, but it looked awesome. I was very excited. I was like, this is the future of games, and since then, people herald it as one of the best games of all time. And so here I am playing this game, and I am playing it for the first time. I've never played Final Fantasy VII. I've never even really experienced Final Fantasy. It's not a franchise that's appealed to me. It's not in a genre that I spend a lot of time in. And so I'm playing it for the first time through this hotly anticipated remake. I was excited. I was very excited to finally give this game a shot and play one of the most important video game releases of all time. Play it in a new, modern way with a tweak to the gameplay. I played the demo, and as you guys saw in my Let's Play of the demo, I definitely enjoyed it. I was very excited coming out of that demo to play this full game and finally say I've experienced this story. Even though I do know some spoilers because, you know, it's been 20 some odd years. So obviously you hear things after that long. But to experience it in its own natural way, I was very excited. And, you know, I'm several hours in, probably 10 or 11 hours in. I'm on like chapter 8 or 9 or something. I'm now hanging out with Aerith. I've met her for the first time and we're running through. I was just picking flowers. I was just saving some children, and I'm at that point in this story. And, you know, the game is really not doing it for me for the most part. Now, something that needs to be said, okay, and something that I want you guys to really hear when I say this is that I'm not hating this game, nor do I see this game as a bad game. It's not bad, it's not poorly made, and I am not hating or disliking it. But what I am doing is I am struggling, okay? I'm struggling with this game quite a bit. Because there are quite a few elements in this game that I think are pretty good and actually really fun and I'm enjoying. For the most part, the combat, there's a couple of things about the combat that is annoying and drives me crazy, but big picture, the combat is fun. And I like that they made this an action hack and slash kind of game. Like, that appeals to me more than a turn-based kind of battle style. There are some turn-based games I've enjoyed in the past. For the most part, it's really just kind of Octopath Traveler. I love that game. But with that one exception and maybe another weird floating exception I can't remember, I'm not really a turn-based kind of guy. So what they've done to change the battle system in this game, I appreciate, and it definitely drew me in after playing the demo, I'll admit. I obviously like the visuals and the tone and the aesthetic and the overall design of the game visually. It's super impressive, of course. We're all loving that. I think the characters are really interesting for the most part, and I like them. And I'm liking, like, the big swings the story is taking. The minutia stuff I don't really care about. But the big stuff, like where the story is trying to go and what it's trying to say, for the most part, is certainly interesting. But those good things aside, I'm still really struggling with this game, you guys, and it's definitely starting to turn me off from it, and it's unfortunate. I don't anticipate that I'm going to not finish this game. I have every intention to finish this game. It's at least good enough and important enough for me to want to see through to the end, so I'm not trying to say I'm going to give up on this game. But I'm really struggling, you guys, with how this game is weaving its narrative and its story and its dialogue and its cutscenes into this game and interjecting it into all of these these parts that I think should be gameplay focused, and instead they're just like, here's a cutscene, here's a cutscene, here's another cutscene, here's another cutscene. Do you want another cutscene? Because here's 5 more cutscenes. It keeps doing that, and it is absolutely choking the flow out of this game and this experience. And I can't lie, I kind of hate it. Again, I'm not hating the game itself, the package that is this game so far, but I am hating the lack of flow, and I'm hating the pace of the game, and I'm hating that they're throwing so many cutscenes and so much dialogue at me, the player of this game, because I feel like I'm not really playing this game. I feel like, I don't even know, I don't even want to say that I'm watching this game, because it's not that kind of a situation. And I know that this game, you know, it's based on a game that already has like a predetermined story that's 20, 25 years old. So it has to tell that same story, only in a different, more fleshed out way. I get that, and I even welcome that. I have no problem with that concept. I think that that's a fine, and it was an exciting concept again to me as somebody who never played this game or experienced this story. I wanted to get a newer, more modern take on a classic story I've never experienced, because I was thinking it's going to make it easier and more fun for me to experience it than going back and playing the old PlayStation 1 version of the game, even though I'm old enough to have, you know, I was a teenager when that game came out, but I never played it. So I was excited for that, and I get that that's what it's trying to do, and it's trying to be more modern and cinematic, you know, in this age of 2020 gaming, but I don't think that they're doing it the right way. I've thought about other games that focus on being very like narrative heavy and exposition heavy and very cinematic. I've talked before about how I've come around to cinematic game experiences over the last couple of years, and that's true, I have. I can now welcome a properly cinematic game for sure, like a Detroit Become Human or an Until Dawn, for example. But I don't think this game is actually doing it the right way. I think that what this game wants to be is less of a Detroit Become Human and more of an Uncharted. And I think that Uncharted, being a game that's about the gameplay but also is very heavily story focused and character focused, strikes a pitch perfect, just unbelievably great balance between how you're playing it as a video game with a controller in your hands, and then also, you know, some cutscenes and some scenes of dialogue. Obviously, a game like The Last of Us would be a good example, as well as even recently 2018's God of War. These are games, Uncharted, The Last of Us, God of War, that are about giving you a lot of story and exposition and character moments, but they have to balance those between the fact that it's a game first, because there's so much gameplay to these games, and the gameplay is very good in those games, and so you play huge, uninterrupted sections of gameplay, controlling the characters, you're shooting, you're fighting, you're swinging your swords, whatever you're doing in those games, and you're doing that for huge sections and exploring. And when you are going to get a cutscene moment, it's because you've kind of earned that cutscene. It becomes a reprieve from the gameplay experience that you're playing and that you're experiencing, so that you want to get to that next moment where you see the characters interact with each other to kind of get a couple of minutes of more context that's hopefully very interesting before the game frees you up again to just play until the next predetermined moment, and you can kind of engage in those moments in many ways when you are ready. Another great example in the RPG space is the Xenoblade games, which I think also handle this perfectly. But in this game, in Final Fantasy VII Remake, that is not what's happening. Every time you turn a corner, every time you walk into a door, every time you see a shoe on the ground that you pick up, every time you start or complete a battle, not every time, but most of the time you do these things, the game pulls control away from you, and you're watching the characters talk and animate and do a cutscene thing, and then when you're even between battle stuff, maybe you're not in the battle, but you're walking through a city with another character, it's constantly stopping and pulling you out of the game world experience into the quick cutscene experience. Sometimes they're very long, like a couple of minutes. Sometimes they're even very short, like 30 or 40 seconds. Don't get me wrong, they are sometimes very short, but it's constantly doing that, and I'm like, I have no control over this experience. And what makes it worse, here's the reason it's a problem, and why I'm not putting this game in the Detroit Become Human camp of being cinematic this way, and why I put it more in the Uncharted camp. And it's because this game has been transformed from an old school turn-based RPG story-heavy experience into what they tried to sell us as a sword-swinging hack-and-slash action game, okay? The change in gameplay, to me, this is my opinion, the change in gameplay, to me, has felt like a trap. I think I was trapped into this game, you guys. Because again, the demo very much showcased the combat. There was very little moments of stopping and talking and cutscenes and stuff. Like, they were there, but it was so... That demo experience was so in favor of the gameplay and the combat that I thought that's what I was going into, okay? I was ready for a game that was like... this is a weird comparison because I'm not trying to make a one-to-one comparison. This is just one that comes to mind. Like a Bayonetta, okay? Because Bayonetta is a game where you're just running around just kicking ass with your weapons and your hands and your feet, and you're just doing that. And there are like moments, you know, here and there where you're going to stop and get a cutscene and some dialogue, but they're very short and they're fewer and far between than what Final Fantasy VII is doing. And I appreciate that style. And so you could say, well, Rob, you just want an action game. You don't want an RPG game. And I would say, I guess in most ways, you're right. Yes, that is what I wanted. And I thought that's what this game was going to be. By changing it to like a Western-influenced kind of hack-and-slash action game, I thought that's what they kind of turned this game into. And the demo gave me reason to think that's what I was going to get. Something that was going to be like 80% gameplay and action and 20% story, dialogue, and cutscenes. And I would have been fine with that. But what I'm getting is something that's more like, I don't know, 40% gameplay and 60% dialogue and cutscenes and stuff like that, and story. And that's just a balance that for me doesn't work. I get that it probably works for a lot of people, both fans of Final Fantasy VII, fans of RPGs, and maybe just a lot of you guys that don't even think about this and you're just like, yeah, this is great. This is the game it is. And I think that's awesome that you guys can all enjoy it. But for me, I kind of, in a game that has this really awesome action combat, and I think that Square was trying to sell the world on this action combat change to the game, I feel tricked. I literally think I was tricked into picking this up, because I'm going to be real with you guys. If I had known what the balance was going to be and how constantly they were going to weave these cinematic dialogue moments in and out of the game every, 5 minutes that you're playing, I would not have bought this game and I would not have played it. And to confirm the trickery aspect here, if this was just a turn-based game, but still, looked the same, but it was still turn-based combat, I also would probably not have purchased this game, because that doesn't appeal to me. It was because I thought they added a huge action focus to this game and they were going to change it, and I was like, great, I can get like awesome Bayonetta action combat experience, but also now experience the cool story and characters and world of Final Fantasy VII, so that I can say I've done it. But it turns out that that wasn't what this was. And so, also on the flip side, I feel like if they had made it turn-based, the way it used to be, even, let's say they made it turn-based and either I decided not to buy it because it was turn-based, or maybe it was turn-based, but I still decided to buy it anyway. I think that kind of traditional RPG formula works well organically with the amount of heavy dialogue and cutscenes this game has, and so maybe that would have made it just a better overall seamless experience. I think part of my struggle is that the game is at conflict with itself. I think the action sword-swinging combat is at conflict with the constant non-stop dialogue and cutscenes that the game is giving us. And it has to be noted, you guys, I'm not anti-story, anti-dialogue, or anti-cutscenes. Of course I'm not. Again, one of my top 5 favorite video games I've ever played, you guys, in 39 years of life is The Last of Us. So cinematic, so story-focused, plenty of dialogue and plenty of cutscenes in that game, right? Like, we know this. But play that game or watch someone play it if you don't want to remind yourself what it's like. The flow of that game is like, here's dialogue cutscene. Okay, dialogue cutscene is over. You've gotten character growth and character moments, and now you have context for what you're going to do next. Coming out of this dialogue moment is huge stretch of gameplay. And they might talk to each other while you're playing, but it's just a stretch of gameplay. We're moving across the world, we're moving through the story, we're getting things done, we're shooting, we're fighting, we're hiding, we're doing gameplay. And then after this huge stretch and you're just out of breath, you're like, this has been crazy. For hours I've been playing this game with a controller in my hand. Now, oh, new cutscene. I've earned the next cutscene. I have played hours of gameplay to earn this couple of minutes where it's like, now I am enthralled with what they're going to show me for the next couple of minutes. This is going to be great. Oh my god, it's a new cutscene. I'm learning more. We're doing stuff. Things are changing. New context for the next stretch of gameplay until you get to the next one. And so if it's a line of gameplay, it's like, you know, here's the beginning of the game, here's the end of the game, and this line connecting them is just gameplay with the controller in your hand. And then there's just pockets of cutscenes throughout this experience to the end. That's what I'm looking for. That's the kind of cinematic gameplay story I like. Again, not a Detroit Become Human, which is separate from this. That is a very different experience, okay? But a gameplay like this, that's how I picture it. This game, unfortunately for me, is between the beginning and the end, it's just a constant mishmash of like your gameplay, you're talking, you're fighting, you're doing, you're fighting, you're talking, your cutscene, your dialogue, your sword swinging, blah, blah, blah. It's just like, picture like a seismograph of an earthquake. That's just what it's like all the way from beginning to end. And I'm not saying that a lot of people can't enjoy that. I think it's fine to enjoy it. I'm a constant conversation with one of my best friends and bandmates right now, who this is his favorite game of all time. And he is in love with this remake, and he's constantly asking me what I'm thinking. I'm constantly bouncing ideas and opinions off him, asking questions about comparisons to the original, and we're having fun talking about it. But it's just funny because we're so very different. I'm complaining about the amount of cutscenes and dialogue, and he's talking about how it's like his favorite parts to the game. And it blows my mind that somebody who has more fun playing a game where they just need to put their controller down and just watch every 5 minutes, as opposed to playing and then getting those great story cutscenes, you know, interspersed in different parts of the game, right? He's fine with the fact that every 38 seconds it's another cutscene, another cutscene, another cutscene. He's texting me right now, actually. I can see him texting me about the game. And so I'm not saying that there's any right or wrong way, okay? I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way to enjoy this game, and I'm not saying there's a right or wrong way to have made the game, really. I think it's just that I'm learning it's not my preferred way to experience a game, even a story-focused game. It doesn't work as much for me, okay? Unless you're doing the Detroit Become Human or Until Dawn thing, where the game was never supposed to be about the intricacies and the difficulty of combat and gameplay, where it's about, you really are just, you only use your analog stick in those games to move your character slowly around and to experience the story and just pick things up or whatever, to look at them, and then you're experiencing constant cutscenes because that's the way those games are designed. This, to me, is a game that was, I think they were trying to tell us, was designed around, here's your big-ass sword and your party of fighters, and you guys are just gonna just beat the crap out of everything throughout this game all the way to the end, and you're going to get a great story along the way, but it's because you're fighting along the way. And that's what I think they wanted us to believe it was, and it turns out it's not. The amount of times this game stops control for me and is showing me characters talking to each other when I want to otherwise just be playing and just in and out of combat without cutscenes. It just does it too much. Again, think of the Xenoblade games, man. You're in this huge world and you're running around, and you can go for as many hours on end as you want to, running around the world, engaging in battles and fighting enemies and doing that whole thing, or even talking to NPCs at your own pace. And when you know you're ready for the next cutscene and you want to evolve the story, you can go to where that's going to be. And there's been moments in this game where they kind of have that structure, like in Sector 7 in the beginning, where you can run around doing side quests. And that's great. Like, I liked that part, actually. I mean, that's an example of the stuff that I am enjoying in this game. Because, again, contrary to what this video might be telling you, I don't hate this game. I'm ranting about this problem I have with it, but I don't hate it, okay, you guys? And again, I'm gonna complete this game. It's good enough for me to at least complete. But that's a great example of how I would like my RPG story game to be. And this game, oh man, I just wish they made a different choice, or maybe I wish they didn't change the combat to action and try to trick me and people like me, because again, as I've already said, I just think this game, as good as it is, I feel like it tricked me. And so, you know, it's not that I don't care about the story. The story, again, like I said, the big swings of the story are interesting, you know, the terrorism thing, the eco-terrorism. What are you doing to the planet? You know, don't do this to the planet and mine its resources and hurt people in the you know, like that stuff's fine. I think the problem is with so many cutscenes of dialogue between characters where you're not actually in control, I'm just kind of getting numb to it. I'm literally numb to the story and I'm numb to the characters, you guys. Because, I mean, when I get to cutscenes, I kind of tune out. I almost, like, I sit back and I put my controller in my lap and I pick up my phone, you guys. And I'm doing, here's the thing, I can play for an hour, and in 1 hour of gameplay, I will probably do that 8 or 9 times. That's how often these cutscenes happen. I'm just like, It's not that I don't care or I can't care about this good story of a video game. It's that you can't beat me over the head with it. I feel like I'm somebody sleeping comfortably in bed at night, and the creator of Final Fantasy, whose name I don't know, forgive me, kicks my door open and just starts shaking me and start yelling story beats in my face when I'm sleeping. That's how I feel this game is trying to make me, just like, story, dialogue, characters, they have crushes on each other, talk, 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 talk. And I'm like, I'm trying to fight bad guys with my big-ass sword. Can I just do that instead? That's kind of what I want. So anyway, I think that, no pun intended, I've beaten this thing to death, this idea to death. So I'll say at the end here, again, I know none of you are going to believe me, but I still am liking this game. I think what I've learned, and I shared this with my friend as well, I think I've learned that a game that I was hoping to feel like I was going to play a 9.5 or 10 out of 10 experience is probably going to end up being more like an 8. 7.5, 7, or an 8 to me at the end of the day, which is not a bad game, and it's not even a game I would regret spending $60 on. Like, that just becomes like, oh, that's a fine game. It was fine. But this game is so famous and legendary, and the way they've done this, I think, is so frustrating to me that I had to talk about it here in this video. And I know this is going to be like my most downvoted video, and again, I'm not trying to make you angry or people angry. I'm not trying to lose subscribers or any of that stuff. I mean, but I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to sugarcoat my opinion and rave about a popular game that I'm not enjoying just to get likes or just to keep subscribers. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to share my honest feelings and opinions about this very hot, popular game. And for me, it's just okay, and it has this huge fatal flaw that is drastically hurting the experience for me. So, with that being said, oh Lord, tell me what you guys think. Give me your thoughts and opinions. Bring on your hate. I'm ready. I'm prepared. I knew what I was getting into when I turned this camera and this microphone on. I knew what I was getting into. So bring it on, man. I gotta hear. I mean, if anyone agrees with me, I'd love to hear people who might agree with me. And reminder, this isn't a hater video. This is just me talking about one problem with a popular game for 20 minutes or whatever. And if you love the game, if you love this aspect, talk with me about it. Share your experience. If you're a fan of the original, if you're a fan of this remake, tell me what you think. And so with that, I'm going to sign off. This video is a wrap. Probably this is career suicide for me, but what are you going to do? So this video is a wrap. Thanks, of course, as always, for tuning in, guys. This is Rob of Real to Review, and I'll catch you next time, maybe if you decide to come back on another video.